Good morning. Welcome to our Institute of Global Professional Free webinar. Thank you all for joining in and stay with us till the end. My lovely audience, today I am your host for the morning and my name is Bathunder. I am from Bangladesh. Dear audience, I am proud to be a associate with IGP as a global member. I feel honored and privileged to host this webinar. It's my delight to welcome you all to our Institute of Global Professional Free webinar. Thank you all for joining us today in this marvelous morning, and it's my humble request and pleasure to all of you to stay with us till the end. Institute of Global Professionals serves students and community resource providing holistic social work and education for create a competent generation. IGP is a leading on online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. Institute of Global Professional is an educational institute provides social work with globally recognized. We organize our webinar training offline online courses by based and trained speaker coaches from all over the world. Our mission is to empower people. We have already completed 1,110 webinars successfully. Dear participant, let's welcome our speaker today. Today our speaker name is Sir Kevin J. Morales and West. He is from Philippines. He is a teacher at University of Baguio, Philippines, trainer, researcher, and invited speaker in local and international conference. Hello, sir. Welcome to our webinar.
Hi, good morning, Mom. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and thank you very much for that sweet introduction. May I already start my lecture for this morning?
Yes, sir. You are most welcome, sir. Sir, uh, please describe yourself and then you can start your presentation.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you, or shall I say, Happy New Year, Happy 2023. We pray for peace and love to abound for this very fresh year. And I believe that it's a great way to start because we are all gathered here to actually learn together and feed ourselves with more knowledge and more skills. And with that, I would also want to extend my gesture of gratitude to the Institute of Global Professionals for welcoming me. I think this is my fourth time to speak, but this time around we shall be speaking for another equally interesting topic later, which I will reveal later. Okay. So yes, everyone, you have heard the introduction, right? I'm hailing from Baguio City, Philippines. That's the northernmost part of the country. And as you all can see, I'm wearing my turtleneck attire for this morning because we really have a very cold temperature in Baguio, which is known to be the summer capital of the country also. So I hope to see you around and thank you very much for coming into our lecture. Again, thank you very much for the invitation. So I am aware that our demographics for this morning would not only include Filipino audiences, but we also welcome in our table of discourse our professionals, our students, and other concerned individuals hailing from the different parts of the globe. So we have Bangladeshis, we also have people from different Asian and of course to different countries in the world. So thank you very much for coming over. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me now to introduce our topic for this morning. I would try to really make my best to concise and shorten our discussion because these ones are, I'm very certain that you are familiar about this. We will just be emphasizing and expounding other significant details and informations regarding our topic this morning. So I hope I can make a justice out of it. Okay. So with that in mind, everybody, please allow me now to share my screen to all of you and let us talk about this topic called the intercultural communication competence. Okay, to our lovely host, may I please verify if my PowerPoint presentation is already on the full screen mode. Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Sir, your screen is visible and everything is okay. You can continue, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. To all our participants in this webinar, I would just want to open our lecture or our interaction by having a global chat. Okay, I wanted to call this activity a global chat because again, we're not just ushering one nationality or one country here. We are welcoming and extending our arms to learn together, regardless of our different affiliations or different countries of origin. So I want you now to please make use and maximize our comment box to answer these questions or to complete these statements that I have with you for the global chat. Now let me just start with the first statement. Please feel free to place your answer or key in your responses in our comment box to complete the statement. So our first statement, ladies and gentlemen, is good evening or good morning in your local or native language or dialect. So I want you to greet everybody with a good morning or good evening wherever you are using your local or your native dialect or your dialect or your language. Okay, may we start now? I want to see, I'm using my phone on the side so I can also monitor some comments and responses on our comment box. Okay, I hope that greetings are already being keyed in. Okay. Okay, the first one is I want you to greet each other using your local language or dialect, and please greet them through the comment box here. Okay, so I have it in. Thank you very much for our first greetings. I think this is a Tajik language. Thank you very much, sir. I don't know if that's good morning or good evening. I think it's good morning. That's how they say that in the Tajik language. I'm also curious how we pronounce that using the Tajik tongue, right? And we also have another one which is maupay nga gabi. Okay, this is a Waray dialect from Eastern Samar, which is also a very beautiful part of the Philippine Islands. And we also have the Arabic language. I'm curious how Arabians would greet each other good evening or good morning in their own language or Arabic language. Okay, we also have English greetings on our comment boxes. We also have magandang tanghali. It's happy lunch, okay, in the Philippines. Okay, that's the Tagalog statement. We also have from Kenya, and Sir Isaiah says, or Mama Isaiah would say, Habari ya asubuhi. I hope I'm pronouncing the language correctly, but that's a Kenyan greeting. We also have Maayong buntag sa imo. Okay, that's from the Philippines, obviously. And then we also have from Ilocano, because we also speak Ilocano in the Cordilleran region. We say na imbag na aldaw, okay? That's good morning. And then we'll be waiting for more greetings. So thank you very much for your cooperation. We were able to greet each other with our local languages. Later on, you will know why did I use a global chat to bridge myself to our topic this morning. Okay, but let's proceed to the next statement. I want you now to please use the comment backs once again to please key in any cultural gathering, whether that be a festival, whether that be a fiesta. That's how we have it in the Philippines. Please put any cultural gathering or any cultural occasion that you celebrate in your country or in your community. Okay, I want you to please just pick one of the many cultural gatherings or occasions that you used to celebrate in your own country or in your own community, and please mention that on our comment box. Okay. Um, I'm curious as to how what cultural gatherings we celebrate. Okay, so while waiting for those responses on our comment box, I want to the Arabic language for good morning, according to Mom or Sir Ines, is Sabaa Kair. Okay, I don't know if I pronounce. I hope I was able to pronounce that. Okay. Another audience said that they are celebrating in the in their own country the Navruz holiday. I'm curious about what Navruz is and what country celebrates Navruz. Okay, I hope sir or ma'am can answer that on the comment box. How about the others? Okay, can you please name at least one cultural gathering or cultural occasion that we used to celebrate in our respective country or in our respective community? Okay, and then we'll be waiting for more responses on the line. Okay. Okay. While waiting for others, and we have the last statement to complete. Using your own language also, I mean, reflecting on your own origin or in your own respective country, I want you now to please at least mention or give us one remarkable tourist spot or tourist destination in your respective country or in your respective community. Okay, again, I want you to please tell me at least one of the many tourist spots or destinations or beautiful destinations that you have in your own country or in your own community. Okay. So I hope the others can also participate by providing us these details in our comment box. Okay. But there is also one response I want to read for all of us. They celebrate the Pinarayan Festival, which is about rice plantation. Okay, and that is from Dolores Eastern Samar, which is the rice granary of the province. Okay, that's very beautiful. And we also have Nyug Festival in Quezon Province. Nyug is the coconut, okay, that we have in the country. And we also have Seboniso, who said the Navruz is actually a Persian New Year. Wow, that's Navruz. Um, in Tajikistan, accordingly, we have it in the spring around March 21st to 24th, and Navruz would mean to them New Day. Okay, very good. We also have the traditional ceremony of the people. We also have the Bitukang Manok in Atimonan, Quezon, that's in Philippines. And we also have the Tunisian Medina Festival, which is one of the many festivals they celebrate according to one of our respondents. Okay, and we also have the Victoria Falls, which is located in Zambia, which they this is a tourist destination. So they have the Victoria Falls in Zambia. They also have the Nairobi National Park in Kenya. They also have the Banquero Festival in Pagsanhan, Philippines. And they also have the Tinalak Festival in South Cotabato, Philippines. Well, in our area here in Baguio City, we have a lot. In fact, our locals would know that even if you belong to the Visayan or the Mindanao region, because Philippines geographically is actually composed of three different islands. Okay, so we're on the northern side. We actually have a lot of tourist destinations. For one, we have different caves and falls, which tourist, locals, or international individuals would come in and tour. For the cultural gatherings, we have a lot because Cordilleran people, which are indigenously called as Igorot, have a lot of cultures to offer and to preserve. Okay, so we have we also celebrate as part of our cultural living. We are celebrating annually the Panagbunga Festival, the Flowers in Bloom Festival. The Panagbunga is the blossoming or the blooming of the flowers. We have a lot, and there are so many to mention. Okay, so that temporarily ends our global chat. Thank you very much for the responses. We are learning as we go, right? We're learning differences about different cultures and different nationalities and different countries, because that's exactly the reason uh, why I initiated the global chat, to bridge us to our topic this morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, our topic this morning is actually titled as Intercultural Communication Competence. Okay, and that's exactly what we will talk about this morning. So let's start with I'm sure you are seeing my screen on your slides or on your ends. So let's start with revisiting a certain concept that we were introduced in our classrooms. Okay, speaking of the English language, you already know that English language is an international language. Okay, so this is a language for international communications. We use it in international contacts. We also use it in international market or different factors or facets of the world, and different aspects like in the government, in the classrooms, in schools in general, and a lot more. Okay, so let's try to revisit the concept that we were exposed at in our classroom, which is the Catchrue's concentric circles model back in 1985. So if you look at the image that is being presented in front of you or on the screen, it actually tells you that there are three different circles, okay, in the model. And we have the inner circle, which is in the very first, the smallest circle that you can see in the center. And then we have the outer circle, which is the second smaller circle. And then we have the largest circle, which is tagged as the expanding circle by Cashru. Now, my dear colleagues, I want to tell you that the inner circle pertains to the native, okay, quote and unquote, the native speakers of the English language, meaning to say they were born to have spoken and to have used the English language, okay? And then the second circle, which is the outer circle, is enlisting the countries that make use of the English language as the second language. So that explains that if it's a second language, meaning to say they have like more languages before the English language. Okay, they're using their another other languages apart from the second language, which makes second to them, which makes English to them as a second language. Okay, and then we have the largest circle, which is the expanding circle. Unlike the outer circle, the expanding circles are pertaining to countries that actually make use of the English language as a foreign language. So they're going to school, and school is actually the only place where they learn the English language, because they're being prepared to interact with other people in different countries sooner, and then the school becomes their training ground. But for the other aspects, rarely do you speak English language in these countries if it's an expanding circle country. Okay, so in the inner circle, the natives are of course the United Kingdom or the British individuals. We also have the American speakers. We also have Australian speakers. They are what we call the inner circle countries, okay? And then the outer circles would classify themselves as using English language as a secondary language. That includes my very own country, which is Philippines. We also have Nigeria. We have India. China could also be part, because China already has English as a second language, and a lot more. Most of them falls on the Asian continent, okay, or in the Asian region. But expanding circles, which they have a very limited grasp of the English language, because as I was saying a while back, most of the trainings that they have as to learning and using the English language is inside the classroom. But when they get out of the classroom, rarely do they speak and rarely do they hear English language speakers. So that includes countries like Germany, Japan, China, Russia, Brazil, and a lot more. Okay, so why do we have to go back to these concepts? My dear colleagues, this concept explains that we have this is where the concept of a non-native and a native speaker of the English language came from. Okay, so what does that has to do with intercultural communication competence? It's important to know that Catchrue's concentric model has faced a lot of criticisms from theorists, from scholars, from yes, from scholars, from experts. Okay, so some of the arguments that they are throwing for the Catchrue's model is, first one, they think that the Catchrue's concentric model is oversimplified. So what does that mean? Maybe we have overgeneralized. Okay, maybe there are select concepts that we need to explain further, and these scholars see that the Catchrue's model has like failed on this part because they think that the model is oversimplified. Okay, and another argument by certain scholars countries would be the unclear memberships. Okay, they are confused as to where they fall under. Am I falling in the inner circle? Am I part of the outer circle in the model, or am I part of the expanding circle? Okay, and then another argument being given by different scholars about Catcher's model is the model is limited, okay, because they only classify the native and the non-native speakers based on their nationality or based on the countries of origin, which they don't perfectly agree. Okay, and then the fourth argument that the model receives from the scholars is the model is not clear in differentiating the native speakers versus the excellent communicators, because you can actually be excellent communicator using the English language, but doesn't necessarily mean that you are a native speaker. Okay, so that would be possible. You are not a native speaker of the English language, but over time you were able to learn and then proficiently use the English language to communications, okay, to real life communications. Now, going back to the model, because we already have the concept of the native speakers of the English language and the non-native speakers of the English language, we're trying to already change that concept. Okay, we're trying to already debunk the concept. Why? Because according to different studies and according to different researches and according to different scholars, they think that the notion of having a native speaker, the inner circle of the model, and the non-natives, which are the outer and the expanding circles in the model, they think that it was just given as a social label by people. Okay, so they think that in this current age, since everyone already speaks and everyone already learns the English language, they think that it's about time to remove, okay, the label of being a native or a non-native. They think that English is already for all, which personally also agree. Okay, because there is what we call as transboundary or and transnational national spread of the English language. By the way, in the PowerPoint presentation, the EL stands for the English language. So what does that mean? Over time, the English language has been being used to different countries, being introduced to different countries. So yes, it technically started in the inner circle, but because of international communication that went over time, of course, the outer circle countries until the expanding circle countries were able to adapt and use the English language as well. So it happened very rapidly. The English language was made available, was able to reach the different countries regardless if they are the native countries or the inner circle countries or not. So I'm telling you that the English language is so fluid. It is very flexible, okay? And it is spreaded so fast, okay? Which is a good thing, because if it did not spread and it's not fluid and it's not flexible, I don't think that we will be introduced to the English language, and I don't think that we could be able to learn the English language easily and of course faster. So that's a good point, and that's the nature of the English language or any other languages at that matter. So the next point, okay, that I want to tell you is actually because of this fluidity and flexibility of the English language and its ability to have reach different countries, the natives and the non-natives, if that's based on the model, it already entails and implies that the English language is no longer a linguistic imperialist material. Okay, what does it mean? Before, if you're the native speaker, you own the language. That's the notion. If I am Australian, if I am an American, if I am a person from UK or England, I definitely own the English language. That was the concept of linguistic imperialism. But because English language spreaded, okay, to different countries, away from the inner circle or beyond the inner circle, then the English language is already claimed as a global ownership of all countries who speak it. Okay, so we have to be thankful that because of the fluidity and the flexibility of the English language, we were able to learn the English language, and because we can already speak the English language, then we definitely own the language also. So we have shifted from linguistic imperialism and from linguistic imperialism to global ownership. It's no longer America, Australia, or UK, or people in the inner circle of the Moodle are the only owners of the English language, because we can be owners also. Okay, so that's the simplest explanation for that particular matter. Now, why did it happen? Okay, there are so many phenomena, okay, that contributed to the spread of the English language so fast that it already became a global ownership to all countries in the globe. The first one is because of globalization, okay, and you know exactly what globalization had contributed, okay, in our generation, in the current era. The next one is internationalization, because people would also scout for jobs in different countries. Normally they will also communicate to other people, okay, or in the education sector, we are also sending our students to study in different countries, okay. There are different scholarships, different grants that are being offered to our students, so they study in different countries. So we can no longer prevent people from communicating to other people, okay. Therefore, that is a good thing that was given by globalization and internationalization. So we also have a very thin line already of an EFL and an ESL country, okay. Again, the ESL, if that's based on the model, is the outer circle. EFL is the expanding circle. Now, no longer a question of who is a native and who is a non-native. It's also no longer being questioned if what country you come from. The concern here is when we're using the English language wherever we are, even if we're inside our country or outside of our country, there has to be a means of intelligibility. Okay, intelligibility is actually the clarity of speaking and communicating using the English language across the native speakers and the non-native speakers. Okay, so the important thing here is it's no longer about your country. It's no longer about you becoming a native or a non-native speaker of the English language. What matters is when you speak the English language, you speak it for communication purposes, you speak it for meaning, and you speak it with clarity. Okay, so that's the very important thing. Now, in the use of the English language, we already hail the English language as a lingua franca. It's the world's international language. So wherever you go in different parts of the globe, you can speak to other people using the English language. Well, we respect that these people have their own other languages apart from the English language. But if you meet other individuals, we can resort to using the English language to communicate with them meaningfully. Okay, so we also have another good thing that we can see in this illustration is that there is cultural diversity. Okay, there is cultural diversity. The question now is, how are you going to communicate with other people using the English language and adjusting yourself to the cultural environment? Okay, because again, everyone, we go back to the basic concept that language and culture are married. You cannot separate language and culture. So because we are already good speakers of the English language, another thing is another point of reflection is how are we going to communicate to different nationalities using the English language and considering their cultural environment? Because even if we speak the same language, but we have a different culture, we behave differently in a certain communication situation, correct? So, how are we going to speak the English language and at the same time studying and becoming knowledgeable and adapting to each other's cultural differences? Okay, because it's easier actually to communicate with other people if you are very similar by culture. If I speak with a Filipino, with a fellow Filipino, because we are both Filipinos, we have already a common interest, we already have a common or commonality or similarity, and so we speak the English language, that would be better. But the challenge comes in when I am a Filipino who speaks the English language and suddenly I met a Malaysian uh, national, and then she speaks to me with the use of the English language. I cannot exclude culture in our communication. I have to know this Malaysian speaker, and the Malaysian speaker has to know me culturally so that we can use the English language in a more harmonious manner. Okay, I hope we are learning from that. So we respect that there are also different varieties of the English language. The Philippine English is a variety of the English language. And this is something that I always tell my students: when you speak the English language and you speak it in the Philippine accent, you have to be proud of it, because the Philippine English, for one, is already considered as a legitimate variety of an English language. So we don't have to like imitate how Americans would speak so as we sound native. We don't have to imitate how British speakers accentuate their speeches. We don't have to do that, because the very point that we can use the English language in the Philippine way or in the Philippine accent is already good enough. Okay, so we respect the varieties. Singaporean English, they have their own variety of the English language. Taiwanese English also is another variety. Or wherever you are in the part of the world, you have to be proud of the accent that you put in your variety, because that also reflects the country where you came from, and it also depicts the culture that you were reared at. Okay, the most important thing is we're using English language for communication, negotiation, and accommodation. Okay, so we are being taught of the intercultural communication, meaning to say, that was my question a while back. So if we can already speak the English language, and then suddenly we are communicating to people from different countries or in the international scene, how are we going to speak the English language and at the same time adapt to the cultural pattern of our communication? Because if we don't do that, I don't think that we could harmoniously communicate with each other. So that's where intercultural communication comes in. We have to be competent in intercultural communication. It's no longer a question of fluency, but it has to be a question of proficiency. Okay, and it's no longer just using the language, it is also being culturally knowledgeable with the person who we are talking to. So in ICC, or intercultural communication competence, pertains to the people from two different cultures that come together and communicate with each other. So it's the ability to communicate effectively and appropriately with people from other language and cultural backgrounds. That's how diverse the world now is. And we have to thank globalization and internationalization phenomena for that. So we already in ESL countries, we already treat ICC, or intercultural communication competence, as the newest phase of the English language, or English as a second language. Okay, so let me give you another enlightenment, that when you meet a certain person, you look at the person as an iceberg of culture. If we're be basing that from Hall back in 1996, so what does that explain? It explains that look at a person like as an iceberg. Okay, and we know that 10% of the iceberg is above the water level, and then the 90%, which is the largest part of it, is actually submerged in the water. So the 10% is only the surface culture. Okay, we can only see a person with, we can just easily say, we can just easily know the person based on information regarding his or her behavior, language, actions, and gender. But the 90% of that is something critical, because we don't see that right on the surface. We have to communicate with this person, develop familiarity with this person, develop friendship or relationship with this person to get to know them better. And the 90% will be revealed over time, which is actually the depth structure, because this will include the person's age, values, thoughts, sexual orientations, culture, which is our main concern, religion, life experiences, physical abilities, and style. Okay, so at least we are guided that next time around, when we communicate with other people using the English language, we look at them as an iceberg. We understand that they have another cultural orientation that may be affecting the way they communicate with us. Okay, so we look at ICC as something holistic. It should not just be a skill. It's not just the fluency, how to speak the English language, and it's not just winning people when you communicate using the English language. It has to be holistic because it has to be based on knowledge. You have to be culturally knowledgeable about the person you're speaking to, and you're supposed to be linguistically knowledgeable about the English language, the proper words to use, the proper statements to give, okay, in the communication. We also consider skill because it's a skill to communicate in an intercultural communication situation, right? And we also use the ability, okay? So ICC is a holistic concept. Now, if we'll try to put that in an ESL country, we mean that ICC in the ESL countries would be the ability of the second language speakers to mediate or interpret the cultures of themselves and of others, and to stand on the bridge, or indeed be the bridge between people of different languages and cultures for meaningful communication. And we look at classrooms as a metropolis of diverse cultures. So I know that majority of our audiences this morning are coming from the teaching profession. The question now is, teachers, when we get to enter our classrooms, we look at them as diverse individuals. They are totally and largely culturally different from each other. Okay, and culture is hard to tackle, and it's a very important ingredient in an intercultural communication. So as a teacher, the demand now, or the challenge now, is how are you going to teach them the English language, to speak the English language, and how are you going to put yourself into balance of understanding their cultural behaviors and their cultural practices, right? Because we look at these students in our classrooms as culturally different from each other. So how are we going to teach them the English language at the same time learning their culture, at the same time teaching them to actually use their knowledge of the English language and their culture for meaningful communications? That's the challenge now. So we are putting ourselves as teachers, as professional mediators between foreign languages and cultures. We are indeed teachers of global and local cultures. That's what we call glocal, okay? And we also have to be enlightened of the fact that culture is the core of language teaching. Before you even teach the language, you have to study their culture, okay? So you know how are they going to respond to the language that they will learn. And of course, the culture should aid the language proficiency. Now we go back to the basic concept, the conventional idea that language and culture are intermarried, they cannot be separated. Okay? And the third one is intercultural communication is an ESL requirement. Okay, we don't just teach our students to be fluent in the English language, we also teach them to adjust themselves to the cultural identities and behaviors and patterns of the people that you'll be communicating with in the future. We have to prepare our students for that. Okay, so that also gives us an idea as teachers or English language teachers that in our classrooms we have to target that kind of competency. We have to develop our students international communication, intercultural communication competence. Okay, and this is a saddening fact because this one that I'm presenting to you, my dear colleagues, is actually based on my study when I was taking my master's. Okay, so the first one is I actually read a lot of literatures, and most literatures would agree with this fact that teachers nowadays, especially in the ESL countries, seem to be unprepared and not so confident to integrate cultural elements in the English language teaching. Okay, so we need to go back to the teachers. What's happening? Why are the teachers feeling unprepared and not confident to integrate ICC in an English classroom? Because I find out that based on literatures, teachers would just exclude cultural elements in their discussion. They only focus in teaching the English language to the students. The point is there is a disconnect because the students, we need the culture to aid the students' language learning, correct? So that's something that we have to address as teachers. And then another observation is there is a scarcity of intercultural knowledge and immersions. A lot of teachers are not knowledgeable how to combine language or English language and cultural elements in an English classroom. How they cannot figure out what's the connection of the English language to the students' culture. So that's something that we have to also address as a gap, okay? And the third one is there is restricted cultural contents and ICC responsive pedagogies and materials. Based on my study, I actually found out that in the Philippines alone, we are so invested to books that are being created or published or authored by the native speakers. Okay, and so I suggest that as a challenge to our to us teachers, we can actually innovate materials. We can also produce our own materials so that we can also use our because in the Philippine English for one, for example, we also have like a Philippinized English words. Okay, probably if we can put that in our materials later on, our students could also be familiar with what we're talking to. Okay, because again, these Philippinized words are so close in their setting. So maybe one challenge is that teachers can innovate, create, or produce materials, and of course, explore different pedagogies or teaching methodologies to actually integrate language or English language and the culture in the classroom so that students could be competent in intercultural communication. The end goal here is to prepare our students to be competent in intercultural communication. Okay, so, there is a concept that Byram calls as fluent fools. This is what I was mentioning a while back because fluent fools is actually our enemy in terms of intercultural communication competence. What does that mean? These fluent fools, as defined by Byram and Binet, are actually the individuals who are so good. They are very fluent in speaking the English language. They have a good fluency. They have a very good structural accuracy, but this is the biggest problem. The fluent fools lacks cultural competence. Okay, some of the words that they're using may be out of context. It may not be relevant or relatable to the people they're speaking with because the word may not be applicable in the context of the person. Or this particular English word that you're using in the communication is too hard for the person to understand because this is not relevant in its setting or in his culture. So, everyone, there is no cultural competence among the fluent fools. They only have the fluency of speaking the English language, and that's a big problem because communication's heart is understanding, it's meaning, it's giving meaning, it's negotiating. So, how can we negotiate with other people using the English language if we did not study their culture and we don't adjust the way we speak and the words that we use in the English language based on their context and their culture? I hope it makes sense. Okay. So there are so many components. When you speak of intercultural communication competence, there are so many components to mention. There are so many components to understand. But the first one is, according this is actually a model to Byram, which she calls as wires. This will tell you that in intercultural competence, you need to teach the English language. That's linguistic competence, and then you have to teach our students how to use the English language in real life settings or context. That's social linguistic competence. And you have to teach the students, or we have to teach the students to use the English language to carry out conversations. That's the discourse competence. Okay. So in my study, actually, I banked on the orientations of teachers according to Chow back in 2015. So for you to achieve, for us teachers to achieve intercultural communication competence so that we could also have something to teach to our students, first one, we have to revisit our effective orientation. How do we look at culture? How do we look at cultural diversity in our classrooms? Are we open to that idea? Is our attitude positive towards diversity of cultures in our classroom? Because that's important. It's a matter of the heart, okay? You have to understand that we are teaching individuals in one classroom, and these individuals are culturally different from each other. Okay, so we don't just focus on the language. Again, we focus on the students' cultural identities. Okay, so how do we respond to that? That is affective orientation. And we also have teachers' capabilities to IC. So for teachers' capabilities, everyone, what things could we do as teachers to bridge language and culture together in one classroom, what materials are we going to use, and we have to also calibrate our perspectives to English language teaching. At the same time, what strategies, what pedagogies could I employ as a teacher to address, okay, the demand to teach the students their intercultural communication competence. So in my study, I want to share to you these wonderful results, because I found out that in the Philippines alone, which is an ESL country, and we also we have English subjects in our academies or in the schools. The localization is actually one of the most familiar strategy among the English language teachers here in my country. So the first one is they educate the students about culture. They cite examples for the students to also understand. So Philippines is a low context culture, and the other countries may be a high context or low context. Okay, or they would also include examples that are local, which are very observable to the students because they are locals in the community. And we can also cite examples in our discussions from the international portion. So all these things could be passable as a pedagogy, and all these things would fall under localization, meaning to say we're bringing our lessons near to the students' context. They have to be familiar with the examples that you give, and their familiarity would be based on this appears in their environment, so they can relate with it. Okay, because studies would show that actually if we localize our examples, we localize our teaching, we localize our lessons, we relate it to the students cultural backgrounds in the classroom, the more that they become interested, and the more that the level of their interest to learn the English language, which may be foreign or secondary to them, would go up. Okay, so if their motivation to learn the English language is high, and so the speed to learn it and the passion to learn it would be also high. Okay, which will benefit our students to master the English language, and at the same time to be culturally adept to their own culture and to others cultures, so they can use the English language in a more relevant way. And we can also make use of localization in forms of citing experiences, like what's happening around the community, what's your experience as a teacher. You may also elicit the experiences of the students or their thoughts. You will know that they will also progress on the way that they use the English language, on the way they recite or talk or share their ideas, right? Or other teachers were also found out to be using translations. They will allow the people in the English classroom to speak their local language, and they will try to translate that local statement to the English language. In that way, we are educating the students. Okay, this is how the statement appears in my own language, and this is how it's being translated in the English language. So they also become educated as to how translations would go, what will be the tantamount or equivalent translations of this language to the English language, so that in the real life communications they will be more knowledgeable and more confident. Okay, and another result that I found out in the study is the use of cross-cultural materials. So the first one is you have to diversify your materials in terms of textbooks or books or any materials that you're using in the classroom. When I say diversify, there should also be like pieces of materials that were locally made, and there are materials that are internationally made. Like for example, because I'm a Filipino English language teacher, I can make use of two books. One book will be authored by a Filipino author, and then another book was authored by an American author. So if I use these books as my materials in teaching them the English language, I also teach them the culture. This is how a local author writes in English language. This is the orientation. And this is how an international English language speaker writes, okay, in the English language. So the students would also, in a way, be exposed to the differences. Okay, so they can also adjust themselves later on when they're with local speakers, and when they talk with natives, okay, outside their countries. And we also need to differentiate. Okay, tell the students what's the difference. If a Filipino English language speaker spells this word in English, what's gonna be the difference of that on the other varieties of English? Like for example, American English alone and the British English are having a lot of different words they use. When you say it's taxi, it's American, and it's cab when it's British, correct? So that alone, you have to educate the students so that when they face Americans, they would appropriately choose the words that they have to use. And then when they later on speak to a British speaker, they can also make use of the more appropriate English word. Okay. In that way, the communication still progresses. Okay. And we also have dissecting the materials. It's very important, my dear teachers, to actually use authentic materials. It's very advantages. It's a winning strategy. Okay, always make use of authentic materials. Now, authentic materials are the materials that are not intended actually to teach English, but you can use these materials to teach English. Okay, again, authentic materials are not intended, were not made to teach English language, but you can actually make use of them to teach the English language. So some examples of the authentic materials that I can give you will be newspapers. Why not make use of newspapers in the community to illustrate your topic, okay, or talk about your lesson? Why not make use of brochures or posters around the community so you can also teach your lesson? And I believe the students will be more competent in intercultural communication if we make use of authentic materials in our classrooms. So the third one is cross-cultural discourses. We can be open to inviting say for example native speakers, like we have like British friends, or we have American friends, or we have Australian friends, or particularly we can download videos or educational videos or lectures of the native speakers from YouTube, and then make use of that as a supplementary video lecture to our students. Okay, because our students would have this idea of understanding how the native speakers would accentuate their speeches, what are their nonverbals when they speak the English language, and they could actually differentiate that to their own local way. Okay, so how would an American speaks? What's the accent? How does the accent sound? And what are the nonverbal gestures that they're commonly doing when they speak the English language? And then, if I'm the student, I could actually immediately and naturally differentiate that from the way I myself use the English language as a Filipino speaker. So I become more linguistically and culturally knowledgeable and skilled. Convergent tasks would also be a very good strategy, because in our classrooms, everyone, we need to break the division. Because of the cultural diversity, students would feel like they are aloof, or they don't want to actually mingle themselves to other people or other classmates. In that way, it actually will be a very very it's not a win-win strategy. So I advise that we make use of convergent tasks. Why not group them together, do a think pair share strategy, if that's the good example. Why not yeah, cross-cultural discourses? I'm reading the comments on our backs, and we can actually have a lot more of convergent tasks. This way, my dear teachers, you are still teaching them the English language, but you are also culturally teaching them. Why? Because they have to adjust with each other when they're grouped together to do the task, correct? If I am the very introverted individual and I'm grouped with people who are not introverted like me, I have to adjust my personality and my behavior so that we could work together as a group harmoniously. And because it's an English classroom, that's the manner I speak the English language to communicate with them. So you see, you're targeting a lot of stones in just one activity, and convergent tasks would really be very very amazingly advantageous to all of us. Even games that we're using could also be counted as cross-cultural discourses. Okay, so in the Philippines, if I may contextualize this topic, intercultural communication is long embedded in our educational curriculum. If we're to revisit the current curriculum that we have in the Philippines and other Asian regions, we have the K to 12 curriculum, which is a 12-year basic education program. You can see that among the four skills that we need to develop for our 21st century learners, effective communication skills is one of them. And so I would want to insert that under effective communication skills, because of globalization, because of internationalization, and because of the growing cultural diversity and multilingual education in the country, then the more that we need to be developing our students intercultural communication, not only to train them how to use the English language with their fellow Filipino learners, but sooner or later they will work as professionals, they will study abroad, they will speak the English language with and communicate with different nationalities. So that would be very advantages on their part. So my dear teachers, I hope I was able to take this time to, I'm just right. I'm just perfectly right on time to end my lecture. I was just given an hour to speak, and I believe that we were able to learn a lot about intercultural communication within the hour that we were talking here or discoursing here. I would want to close the lecture by telling you what Susie Kazim once said: understanding languages in other cultures builds bridges. Okay, so we cannot separate language and culture. We don't just focus on the fluency of speaking the English language, but we have to be proficient. That means we know how to speak the English language and we know the person's cultural background so that we can develop a meaningful communication in our circle. My dear colleagues, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for listening. And I would want to turn the floor back to our moderator. Ma'am?
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. I hope everyone learned from your presentation. Sir, it's time for our question answer session. After a short video, we will start our question answer session. Hello, sir.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you very much. We are ready for the question and answer.
Okay, sir. Okay, let's start our question answer session. Dear participant, after a short video, we will start our question answer session. If you have any question, please ask in our comment box. Is here to reply them. Welcome back, sir. Welcome back to our participants also. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Hi, ma'am. Yes, yes, we can already resume to our
Okay,
question and
sir.
answer portion.
Uh, our first question is from Flami. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good day, sir. Kevin Jackie. Why is English called Lingue France? What is homogenetic in linguistics?
Mhm. Thank you very much, Sir Flomy, for those. I think Sir Flomy has two questions. Let me address the first question first. So, everyone, for emphasis, when you say English is a lingua franca, it means that if it's a lingua franca, it's the language that we use. Because we understand that in the circle, our speakers or our communicators have their own native languages. Okay, so we use the English as a lingua franca because it becomes as a common language that we all know, so that we can communicate with each other. For example, a Filipino, me as a Filipino speaker has a native language which is Filipino, but I traveled to China. And so I was able to meet a certain Chinese national. And we know that Chinese native language is Mandarin or Chinese Mandarin or Fukien. Okay, so I cannot speak my Filipino language, and he or she cannot speak his Fukien or Mandarin language. So the common language that we both can speak in the moment will be English language. So we opt to use English language to drive through in the communication. That's the lingua franca role of the English language. So it's the common language that we all know we can speak apart from our native language. The second question is what is homogeneity in linguistics? Homogeneity in linguistics, in the simplest and shortest the explanation, means that this is the only language that we use. Okay, homogeneity is not the main concern of intercultural communication, if we'll try to relate that back to the topic, because I don't think that homogeneity is more dominating now than ever. Is more dominating now. I think that in the trend now, it's more on multilingualism, it's more on multiculturalism as pushed by globalization and internationalization. So it's already linguistic heterogeneity. Okay, and we need the English language to stand as a lingua franca so that we can communicate with each other regardless of our heterogeneous languages. Okay, but if we mean by definition, homogeneity only pertains to a certain speech community which only has one language. That's why we call it homogeneity in linguistics. I hope I was able to answer Sir Flomy's question, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next question is from Jennifer. How could we impact this in our daily teaching, especially in the primary school? Is there a possibility that we can impact these in all the subjects we are teaching? Thank you. God bless, sir. Happy New Year, learning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ma'am Jen, for that question. I think Ma'am Jen is a fellow Filipino. Well, I was explaining to you a while back the ICC responsive pedagogies, and surely, Ma'am Jen, certainly, you can be a very big support to the development of the students' intercultural communication by applying the pedagogies I was able to lecture a while back. So let me just repeat this very shortly. Whether you're on the primary or you're in the secondary or whatever level of education in that matter, you can actually make use of different ICC responsive pedagogies, such as of course using blending, or diversifying, blending, or combining materials that are authored by our local English writers here, and then of course foreign materials that we have. And then we can also make use of convergent tasks, which I was explaining a while back, games and other authentic materials also, which is a very important thing. So yes, Ma'am Jen, you can make use of these pedagogies and a lot more, to also not only to teach our students the English language, but also to train them culturally, to become culturally knowledgeable on their locality, at the same time to international communicators later on. So thank you very much for the kind words, madam. I hope I was able to respond to Ma'am Jen's questions.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. Our next question is from Jordan Joy. Good day, sir. How a person can examine and improve its intellectual competences?
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Jordan. Again, I would go back to my lecture a while back if we were able to take note of the frameworks that I was able to give. First thing is to understand that when you talk about intercultural communication, it would come in different factors. Okay, there are a lot of underlying factors. If that's for Byram, we can go back to the Savoyers. But in the case of my study, I actually made use of the framework of Chow. And then when you look at the framework, just to illustrate, because the question is how can we examine and improve our intercultural competence? So there are four factors. If that's on the Chow's framework, there are four factors that she enumerated there. And those same four factors are exactly the factors we need to target if we want to become interculturally competent. Okay, first one is to check our orientations. Okay, the very first step is to understand that our classrooms is a metropolis of cultural diversity. Look at our students as culturally diverse from each other, and to develop a positive attitude and a positive mindset about cultural diversity. That's what we call the AO on the framework of Chow, which stands for affective orientation. So important, very important thing is to develop our positive mindset and positive attitude to this cultural diversity. And then second one is from that perspective, because we already have a positive attitude towards cultural diversity, then we can check our perspectives. How are we going to probably give activities, what materials can we use as educators to teach the students the English language at the same time to make them culturally knowledgeable of their own culture and others culture outside the country. And that will be on perspectives, which is the second factor of Chow. We also have the pedagogies, that's the intercultural strategies, which is the fourth or the third factor in Chow's framework. And then we can also have the materials or the resources or the teaching resources that we use in the classroom. So um, if you were able to do that and apply that, sir, on your classroom as an educator or as an English language teacher, then I think that you are on your way to gradually progressing and improving your level of competence in intercultural communication. And at the same time, to your students, you were able to train them or develop their competence in intercultural com. Thank you, Sir Jordan.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Nico. What are same practice strategy or technique in teaching intercultural communication competition to college students?
Mhm. I think this shares a similar concern with Mom Jennifer a while back, who raised a question about teaching strategies or techniques or ICC techniques on the primary school. But the I think Sir or Ma'am Nicomedes is actually affiliated to the tertiary education. That's why she's or he's pointing out to college students. Again, there is no difference. You can actually explore, Ma'am, the techniques that I have shared to you a while back, and you could discover a lot more. So you can use the cross-cultural materials that I was mentioning a while back. You can use convergent tasks and the authentic materials in your classrooms. They are still applicable to college students. So I don't think that there is a difference on the practical techniques and strategies per level of education. I think it's just a matter of choosing what resources. It's a matter of designing the activities and appropriating them in our sessions with the students. So please go back to the strategies I was able to share earlier. Thank you very much, ma'am or sir.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from DCS, Journal Average, Facebook, FB name. Question: how would you describe and different intercultural competence between virtual teaching and face-to-face teaching in religion in situated learning approaches?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Actually, Sir D, who the one who raised the question. Actually, I'm working on a certain study right now where I'm placing ICC in the virtual teaching platform. Okay. Actually, you are pointing out to the current study I'm working on now, because when I was doing the study about intercultural communication, I mean the face-to-face sessions, but I wanted to also venture on how would ICC be integrated and how would ICC be taught among students in the virtual surface or in the virtual platforms. So that's a very interesting question, and I love that question. As to your question, what will be the difference? That's why we need to study. I think I need to encourage our fellows right now to study ICC also in the virtual classrooms. Okay, but of course, the basic ones that I was mentioning a while back, like the good thing about online teaching modality now is the fact that we can actually import, okay, we can import our friends who are natives and non-natives of the English language, or we can actually expose our students to webinars where our speakers could actually be foreign nationals or locals. Okay, so that's one strategy that I am thinking about. Maybe you can also on the PowerPoint presentations, podcasts, videos, or other digital materials that we're using to present in our virtual classrooms could also be checked so that we can have a balance of the materials that were created by by our fellow locals, and at the same time by the international speakers of the English language. So that could be basic strategies, but as to other strategies, maybe we can be encouraged to work on studies and place ICC in the virtual teaching platform so that we can discover more pedagogies we can make use of. Thank you very much, Sir D.
Thank you very much, sir. Our next question is from Mian. I have Indonesian friend. We are here in Taiwan and we are using Mandarin language to communicate. In this situation, in the Mandarin considers as lingua franca. Thank you in
If
advance, sir.
if speaking Mandarin is very applicable to your group, which is what we call a speech community, I don't see any problem with that. So yes, it could actually be considered as an LF to your context, in your respective context. But if you go to the global or macro scale, the English language stands as our lingua franca.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. Sir, I think there is no more questions. So, on behalf of IGP, thank you so much, sir. It has been very informative session. I think everyone learned from your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
sir.
very
See you
much
again
for
in our next.
Yes. Before I bid goodbye, thank you very much for inviting me once again into Institute of Global Professionals. I think I will be like having one speakership in every month. I'm so glad to have seen my schedule, and I'll be speaking with you every month, at least one topic every month. So I hope to also see our educators here, our audiences in the upcoming sessions. And again, thank you very much. Happy New Year and mabuhay po tayong lahat. That's from Philippines. So thank you very much for the invitation. And of course, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. See you again in our next session. Dear participant, to join our quiz session, you have to go www.slido.com and the code is IGP. And the code is IGP. After a short video, we will start our quiz session. Please mention your friend to join our quiz session. Dear participant, today some of our technical problem we cannot share our today's webinar code. We will provide the code in a short time. Thank you. Dear participant, to join our quiz session, you have to go www.slido.com and the code is IGP. And the code is IGP. We will pick your name from Slido, so join with your full name, which will directly print on certificates. Top 10 will be awarded with quiz competition certificate. Already 45 people join with us. Friends, please mention your friends to join our quiz session. We will start our quiz session after 2 minutes. Dear participant, to join our quiz session, you have to go www.slido.com and the code is IGP. And the code is IGP. We will pick your name from Slido, so join with your full name, which will directly print on certificates. Top 10 will be awarded with quiz competition certificate. Dear participant, let's start our quiz session with 45 participants. Our first question of this session, we can cultivate intercultural communication competence by option 1, fostering attitudes that do not motivate us, option 2, discovering knowledge that informs us, option 2, discovering knowledge that informs us is the right answer and 93% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Shuffle is holding the first position after completing our first question. Our second question is competence in intercultural communication includes option 1, motivation, tolerance for ambiguity, open mindedness, knowledge, and skill. Option 2, open mindedness, motivation, empathy, cultural awareness. Option 1, motivation, tolerance for ambiguity, open mindedness, knowledge, and skill is the right answer, and 16% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Gimelian is holding the first position after completing our second question. Our third question is intercultural competence is about knowledge for grammatical forms, being able to communicate in diversified context. Option 1, knowledge of grammatical forms. Option 2, being able to communicate in a diverse context. Option 2, being able to communicate in a diverse context is the right answer and 95% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Gamalian is holding the first position after completing our third question. Our fourth question is intercultural competence is the ability to ignore another person, culture differences. Option 2, the ability to successfully interact with people from other cultures. Option 2, the ability to successfully interact with people from other cultures is the right answer, and 100% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Princess is holding the first position after completing our fourth question. Our fifth question is intercultural communication competence is the ability to communicate effective and appreciately in option 1, tolerance for uncertainty, option 2, various cultural contexts, option 1, tolerance for uncertainty, option 2, various cultural contexts, option 2, various cultural contexts is the right answer, and 100% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Princess is holding the first position after completing fifth question. Our sixth question is effective intercultural communication requires competence which includes option 1, cognitive and effective components, option 2, cognitive, affective and behavioral components. Option 2, cognitive, affective and behavioral components is the right answer, and 95% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Princess I Alberto is holding the first position after completing our sixth question. Our seventh question is which of the following is not an example of intercultural communication? Option 1, beliefs, option 2, gesture. Option 1, beliefs, option 2, gesture. Option 2, gestures is the right answer, and 74% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Rivalian is holding the first position after completing our seventh question. Our eighth question is how do you define intercultural communications? Option 1, two people discussing cultures at McDonald's. Option 2, interaction between people relating to culture and symbols. Option 2, interaction between people relating to culture and symbols is the right answer, and 98% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Gimalian is holding the first position after completing our eighth question. Our ninth question is which of the following is not a potential barrier to intercultural communication competence? Option 1, crying. Option 2, athonistrim. Option 1, crying. Option 2, athocentrim. Option 1, crying is the right answer, and 80% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Gimlian is holding the first position after completing our ninth question. Last and final question of our morning session. Why is intercultural communication studied? Option 1, world plays. Option 2, to understand difference in other cultures and embrace that. Option 1, world teach. Option 2, to understand difference in others' culture and embrace them. The right answer is to understand difference in other culture and embrace them is the right answer, and 95% people are right here. Congratulations, our top 10 quiz competition winner. We have all of your name which you and during joining. We will pick your name from Slido and prepare certificate and will post them into our official Facebook page and group. Our official Facebook page is Institute of Global Professional. In the quiz competition, first place is Gamaliel B. Rivera, in second Flomi, third Jordan, fourth Princess I. Alberto, in fifth position Nico Dan Asmiro, in sixth position Makellan's Miro, seventh position Alex, in eighth position Julius, in ninth position Leah, and last and final position, 10th position Dr. Albert. Thank you very much for your active participation. I hope everyone learned from your webinar. See you again in our next session. Till that, stay happy. Once again, I am Badun Das from Bangladesh.